¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de las colaboraciones internacionales de Qualis. Hoy tenemos con nosotros a Stuart McMillan, uno de los principales entrenadores de Altis, el CEO y presidente de Altis. Stuart, good morning in the United States, good afternoon here in Spain.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on.
Stuart, first of all, I would like you to introduce yourself. Le he preguntado que lo primero que me gustaría es que él se presentara a sí mismo.
Well, currently I'm the lead sprint coach and the CEO and part owner of Altis. We are an education company that coaches primarily track and field athletes, almost all sprinters here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been here for 7 years and building, you know, a nice little good and a fairly elite stable of sprint athletes. And over the last few years now, maybe 5 or 6 years, we've put together, you know, a fairly extensive education platform for coaches all around the world.
Ok, él me dice que, bueno, que es uno de los principales entrenadores y el CEO de Altis, una compañía de educación y también principalmente dedicada al entrenamiento de atletas de atletismo, sobre todo sprinters, ¿vale? Y que además están desarrollando una plataforma de educación para entrenadores alrededor del mundo, ¿vale? Y ya lleva 7 años trabajando con Altis.
I have to remember to pause after every 2 to 3 sentences.
No problem. Dice que bueno, que se tiene que acordar que claro, que cada 2 o 3 frases tiene que parar, pero no, está bien. It's okay, it's okay,
Otherwise,
it's okay.
I'll just ramble.
No, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
And then prior to that, I was in the UK with UK track and field. I coached, you know, Dwayne Chambers and Christian Malcolm and Marlon Devonish and a few other sprinters there, up and through to the London Olympics.
Y estuvo también en Reino Unido entrenando a varios sprinters para las Olimpiadas de Londres junto con otros entrenadores.
And then prior to that, maybe 20 years coaching both bobsled and track and field. And I worked with both the American team and the Canadian team in bobsled from the 2002 Olympic Games all the way up through till 2018.
Pues eso, últimos 7 años en Altis, en Phoenix, anteriormente las Olimpiadas de Londres y anteriormente había estado trabajando también con atletas y las selecciones de Canadá y Estados Unidos de bobsleigh.
Yep, so that sort of brings us up to now. It's I was looking forward to Tokyo 2020 and coaching. I have a group of 12 athletes in my group and looked like maybe 10 or 11 we're going to hopefully make that Tokyo team. Now it's going to be Tokyo 2021, so we're on pause, and then we'll get ready for next year, hopefully.
Ya, y ahora lo que está diciendo es que, bueno, que ya tiene un grupo de 12 atletas que está preparándose para las Olimpiadas de Tokio 2020, pero bueno, que ahora con todo este cambio vamos a Tokio 2021. So, Altis, it came from Citius, Altius, Fortius, the Olympic terms, so...
No, it's actually, Altis is the original home of Mount Olympus. So it was the original, before the Olympics started in Olympus, the town there was called Altis. So
vale. Oh, wow, it's nice, it's nice.
Yeah.
Le he preguntado que si Altis venía del lema olímpico Citius, Altius, Fortius, más rápido, más alto, más fuerte. Y me dice que no, que Altis es el nombre del anterior lugar donde se generaron los Juegos Olímpicos, antes que el Monte Olimpo. Altis, as an idea, which are the main key points from Altis, the main ideas from the project Altis and as an educational company, as a training company, you know?
It's both. I mean, we started off as primarily just a track and field company, and we were doing some education on the side. And as you know, track and field, not a lot of money in track and field, difficult to build a business in the sport. So we always knew that to build a sustainable business, we had to extend and expand our educational services. So over the course of the last 6 or 7 years, more of our focus has been on education, while still ensuring we have a very small, high quality group of sprinters.
Claro, le he preguntado que, bueno, que cuáles son las principales ideas de Altis, si un trabajo educacional o un trabajo de entrenamiento. Él me responde que los dos, que bueno, que en el atletismo no hay un desarrollo económico muy grande y que bueno, que ha estado empezando a trabajar en los últimos años por incrementar el acceso hacia la educación para poder complementar la empresa.
Yeah, we find, it's in track and field especially, there's not a lot of really good opportunities for coaches to educate themselves. And then there's also a disconnect between what we feel is important in track and field, mainly acceleration and speed, and the ability for us to communicate from this world, our expertise in acceleration and speed, to team sport coaches. Team sport coaches, big focus on the weight room and strength, very little focus on speed and acceleration. That's getting better, it's improving, but there's been a bit of a disconnect there. So we hope now to help bridge that gap between track and field and sport performance in other sports.
Bueno, nos comenta que, bueno, que en el atletismo no hay muchas oportunidades para los entrenadores para formarse dentro de ese trabajo y que, bueno, que sobre todo con los sprinters pues han tenido que estar haciendo un trabajo ahí. Y que luego pasa exactamente más o menos con los deportes de equipo, ¿no? Que los entrenadores de los deportes de equipo tienen muchísimo foco en el trabajo de fuerza y rendimiento, pero cuando se habla de lo que es la velocidad y la aceleración, que no lo tenían tan claro. Entonces, bueno, lo que ellos están haciendo es crear un gap, una unión entre lo que sería la parte de atletismo de ese sprinter y la parte del deporte colectivo. So, let's talk about the sprinter and the sprinter mindset. When you approach to training a sprinter, which are your first 3 steps, for example?
First 3 steps?
Yeah, with the athlete. So this is the first day with us as a sprinter, as an acceleration athlete. So we are going to do 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so first step always, any athlete I always work with is I try to identify what that athlete's unique abilities are. What makes that athlete good at what she does or what he does? Why are they good? That's number 1.
Vale, le he preguntado que, bueno, que cuando llega un atleta de aceleración, que cuáles son sus primeros pasos, ¿no? Entonces lo que le ha dicho es que lo primero que nosotros vemos es qué le hace a este atleta único, en qué es bueno, cuál es realmente su punto fuerte.
Number 2 is I talk to the athlete about what they have done in their past, why they have been successful, and what have they liked about training, what would they like to do with us, and what they would like to move forward with. Maybe some things in the past that's worked really well for them, maybe some things in the past that hasn't worked very well. So we take the combination of what we feel is what makes them unique, as well as what they really enjoy, and then hopefully marry those two together.
Vale, él dice que lo segundo que hace es preguntarle qué han hecho en el pasado, ¿no? Cómo ha trabajado, y qué le gusta hacer. Por lo que él quiere es encontrar una relación entre tú eres bueno en esto y esto es lo que te gustaría hacer. Entonces vamos a buscar esa conexión para generar un buen desarrollo.
And then number 3, we organize the training to ensure that they're working towards those unique abilities. So we organize it such that the athlete is doing all of the elements of the training that they're really good at when we want the athlete performing really well. So in our sport, we want the athlete performing well April through September. So we do things then, it's their strengths, their positive, unique abilities, where earlier in the season, we spend more time on their weaknesses. So that's the organization.
Vale, entonces, una vez que ya tiene claro pues, lo que va a trabajar dentro de ese periodo que suelen estar los atletas, que normalmente suele ser entre abril y septiembre, ¿vale? Lo que dice es que la idea es que brillen en el momento de la competición. Por lo tanto, nosotros, una vez que ya tenemos claro cómo van a trabajar a partir de tempranamente en la sesión lo que a él le gusta, después lo que queremos es que desde lo que a él le gusta se vaya focalizando en sus debilidades. Que eso sería más o menos when you talk about the weakness and strengthness, you are talking about in the kinogram, are you talking about some kind of you are good at the first meters, you are good into the transition, you are good at the final meters, because we're talking
maybe.
about
maybe.
Okay.
I'm talking about all over, so it's, are they good because they're very fast? Are they good because they're very strong? Are they good because they're really elastic?
Oh,
So
wow.
different reasons, you know. Are they good because they're mentally very strong? So there
Oh,
could
wow.
be, you know, we'll have a list of different things. Okay, you're good because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we go from there.
Ok, le he preguntado que, bueno, cuando se refiere a debilidades y fortalezas, que sí que se está refiriendo es porque, como hablábamos de sprinters, a lo que son los primeros metros, a la transición, a la parte de atrás, y dice que no necesariamente, aunque también, que lo que queremos ver es que es un atleta que es rápido porque es fuerte, es un atleta que es rápido porque es muy elástico, que es rápido porque es muy acelerativo, porque es muy fuerte de mente. Entonces, lo que tienen es una lista de 6, 7, 8 ítems y entonces vemos lo que es fuerte.
Yeah, so for example, so behind me here, that's Anaso Jobadwana, and then Wade Van Niekerk and Akani Simbini. So they're all very different. Anaso is very fast because he's really bouncy, very elastic.
Oh,
He's
wow.
not very strong, right? Where Akani's really strong and powerful. So, and then Wade is a bit of both, but also a very, very good endurance. So all have their unique abilities that make them really good, but in very different ways.
Vale, por ejemplo, él dice que detrás suyo hay 3 atletas, ha nombrado los nombres, y dice que uno de ellos, por ejemplo, es muy rápido porque es muy elástico, pero que otro de ellos, concretamente el que está más hacia su derecha, a la izquierda en las pantallas, dice que es muy fuerte, y que luego el tercero es como un poco la mezcla de los dos, pero los 3 son muy rápidos de cada uno de sus diferentes maneras. Okay, in terms of acceleration, we have an athlete with elastic power, strength, a strong mindset. But in general terms, first step is strength or what? Because here we need to understand that when here in Spain we think in acceleration, most of the people thinking only in power expression. So let's go to the weight room. You know, they don't think in, oh wow, this is very fast because it's very elastic.
Yeah, that's a mistake. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, we all remember Kim Collins. So Kim Collins, you know, is 42, 43 years old now. Kim Collins was 62 kilos, not strong at all. Very, very weak, small, weak man, but very good starter. One of the best starters in the world. Even, say, Trayvon Bromell ran 997 in high school as a very small, skinny guy, but very fast starter. One of the best starters in the world now, Demet Kemp, ran 650 this year. Small, skinny, not very strong guy. So it's not about force per se, not maximum strength. It's how you use what you have.
Wow, él comenta que, bueno, le he dicho yo que, claro, que ¿qué es primero? Si la fuerza, empezamos por la fuerza, porque claro, aquí en España, muchas veces cuando nosotros hablamos de aceleración, lo que estamos pensando es de entrenamiento de fuerza, y por lo tanto, pues bueno, queremos mejorar nuestra aceleración, vamos a la sala. No pensamos en que alguien es muy rápido porque es muy elástico, y él dice que es un error, y nos ha puesto un ejemplo, por ejemplo, de King Collins, que ahora tiene 42 o 43 años y que pesaba 62 kilos, que por aquel entonces, cuando él competía, no era un tipo muy grande, muy fuerte, sino que era un tipo delgadito, pero muy elástico. Y entonces la idea no era el término fuerza, ¿no? Force production, sino cómo la utilizas. Would you like to explain that more, that expression, how you use the force? Because we are talking about a close skill, like acceleration. There is no information over the athletes. He only have to run. And the term, how you use the force, it's great for understanding that.
Yeah, it's for me, there's a couple of different categories there. So you have athletes that apply a lot of force, like great amount of force, but it takes them a longer time to apply it.
Oh,
and
wow.
then there's more elastic athletes that may not apply as much force, but they apply it much earlier in the stance phase, and it doesn't take them as fast to apply that force. Those are the elastic guys. So, for example, in the UK, I coach Dwayne Chambers, very, very strong, produces a lot of force, but it takes him a long time to apply that force. Or Christian Malcolm, very small, very skinny, very light, very elastic, doesn't apply as much force, but applies it earlier and faster so he can bounce.
Ah, wow. Vale, lo que le ha dicho es que es un concepto de entender. Por ejemplo, ya ha mencionado a un atleta que le estuvo entrenando en el Reino Unido, un atleta de Dwayne Chambers, que era un tío muy fuerte, muy fuerte, pero claro, que tardaba muchísimo tiempo en aplicar la fuerza. Sin embargo, estuvo coacheando a otro atleta que no aplicaba tanta fuerza, pero que era capaz de generar una mayor recarga elástica. Entonces, claro, ahí es donde está el equilibrio. Uh-huh. So,
Makes sense?
Yeah, makes sense,
Okay.
makes sense, because it's great, because you are talking about not only force production. Here we are, because the research goes into the pathway of force, and the question is, how do you measure that one is good at elastic properties, or one their strength is force production? No.
Yeah, it's a very good question. We there's no easy way to do that unless you have expensive equipment. So what we do is we just watch athletes move and see how they move most naturally. So we won't coach them. We won't really do anything with them for the first week or two. We'll just watch.
Oh,
and
wow.
Say, okay, this athlete sort of bounces. This one pushes, and we get to have a better understanding of how they move over time. Now, sorry, I'll pause there and you go and then I'll...
No, it's great. Le he preguntado que, claro, que la pregunta es, ¿cómo medimos si una persona es fuerte, una persona tiene más gestión elástica del movimiento? Y lo que yo le he tratado de decir es, mira, la cuestión es la siguiente. No es tan importante las 2 primeras semanas entrenarles, sino observarles. Durante las 2 primeras semanas los observamos cómo se mueven. Entonces lo que vemos es que una persona cuando se mueve, pues es como si estuviera rebotando, ¿vale? He's bouncing. Pero otra persona cuando se mueve está empujando, he's pushing all over.
Yeah, so, and we have to understand though, it depends on who we are working with, the development level of the athlete. Elasticity requires a high level of coordination. So most young athletes aren't very coordinated yet. So they rely on force and they have to push, where more elite athletes are more coordinated, more rhythmical, they can time up their stride and they can bounce better. So that is one of the reasons why there's a greater correlation between maximum strength and maximum speed or acceleration ability at younger levels, because they're not coordinated yet, so they can't bounce as good yet.
Ok, él ha puesto un ejemplo muy claro. Dice que cuando, por ejemplo, entrenan a jóvenes atletas, la elasticidad, esa capacidad elástica de carga y descarga, no depende tanto es una cuestión de coordinación. Entonces, claro, con atletas jóvenes no son tan coordinados, dependen más de la producción de fuerza. Pero en su gestión de atletas de más élite, lo que tenemos es que ya son más coordinados, por lo tanto ya tenemos más capacidad de generación de esa fuerza elástica. Por lo tanto, vemos una correlación entre estos dos términos a lo largo de la edad. Okay. It's a good point. It's a good point. Also, we can create a correlation between elasticity and the force production and the strength into one season or the period that the athletes are training with you. You also train that strength, that ability to produce force, and that elasticity?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's how we organize the training. As I say, we go from weakness to strength. So if they have, if they're very elastic, maybe earlier in the season, still strength is one of the underpinning abilities to elasticity. It's still important to be strong. So maybe earlier in the season, we'll work more on strength. Or if the athlete is very strong, that's what we'll do at the end of the season. And in the early season, we'll focus more on elasticity.
Oh, okay,
so it's just about the organization and the hierarchy of it. We'll just flip it depending on who the athlete is.
Ok, lo que le he preguntado es que también si podemos trabajar esta correlación con la edad también dentro de una temporada, ¿no? Es decir, en algún momento nos centramos en la fuerza, en otro en la capacidad elástica. Y lo que él me ha dicho es que sí, que siempre van de las debilidades a las fortalezas. Por ejemplo, si nosotros tenemos una persona que trabaja muy bien la descarga elástica, al principio de la temporada nos focalizaremos en la fuerza. Y si es al revés, pues trabajaremos al principio la capacidad fuerza y luego su descarga elástica. Simplemente es una cuestión de jerarquía y de organización. Le damos la vuelta en todos los términos.
Yeah, every athlete is different, and we have to treat them as different. So it's so we have to understand what their unique abilities are, and then coach them that way. Now, that doesn't say that if we have 20 athletes, we have 20 different programs, because it's too difficult. So we try to categorize the athletes into little categories. Okay, you're fast because of this. and you're similar to these 4 or 5 or 6 other athletes. You're fast because of this, and we categorize you with your friends who are similar to you. So it's some individualization, but more categorization.
Ok, él comenta que claro, que cada atleta es único, pero que tenemos que pensar que si nosotros tenemos 20 atletas, que no tenemos 20 programas diferentes, sino que, porque sería muy difícil de organizar, sino que tenemos son categorizaciones más que individualizaciones, es decir, tú eres rápido por esto, pues tú y otros 3 o 4 estaréis trabajando en este grupo, los otros en este grupo y los otros en este grupo. So, great, it's a good point, because here we misconfuse between individualization and categorization. So when you have groups, you think that if you try to individualize the training, that will be crazy. So you have to categorize.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Let's talk about team sports, of the acceleration as a part of the sport. For example, NFL or soccer or... do you think that they have the same principles? We can use the same principles between track and field acceleration and team sports acceleration?
Yes, for sure. I think you need to, first and foremost, you need to learn how to move your body. And one of the most underpinning principles of all field-based sports is how to accelerate and how to run upright. Every sport has it. Now, there's variations depending on the sport, but the underpinning foundational ability is just how to accelerate your body through space. So we need to learn how to do that effectively and efficiently.
Vale, le he preguntado que, claro, que bueno, que hablemos ahora de los deportes de equipo, ¿no? Por ejemplo. Entonces, si nosotros podemos entender que en los deportes de equipo, por ejemplo, como NFL, fútbol, está la aceleración, pero como parte del juego, no siendo un deporte concreto, si nosotros podemos aplicar directamente las bases fundacionales del entrenamiento de la aceleración a los deportes. Y él me ha dicho que, por supuesto, lo primero que tú tienes que aprender es cómo se mueve el cuerpo para entender cómo se genera la aceleración, porque la aceleración es base en el deporte. Yeah.
The way in which I communicate it is sprinting, acceleration, like track and field style, is the technique, and the skill is developed in the sport.
Oh, so wow!
We can teach the technique of acceleration, and then the skill, the contextual skill that is provided by the environment and the task of the sport, will manipulate it as required.
Vale, él ha comentado una cosa que ya llevamos incluso also Lee Taff and Tyler Jerby, they talk about this, the difference between technique or mechanic and the skill itself.
Yeah.
Le he comentado que eso, que también nos lo comentaron Tyler Jerby y Lee Taff. Él dice que lo que tienes que aprender es la parte técnica, la parte mecánica, porque la habilidad, la skill, se aprende en el deporte, se desarrolla en el deporte. Por lo tanto, lo que él hace es aprender una mecánica y manipularla en base a su deporte.
Yeah, and for some athletes, the technique is really important. You know, maybe development athletes that don't understand the technique yet. And for others, the skill is more important. Maybe more elite athletes, it's more skillful. So an elite athletes, we may not decontextualize that skill as much for an elite. It's most of their work is done within that interaction, where younger athletes, or maybe an elite athlete that has poor technique, we may decontextualize it, have to take them away from the contextual environment and work on that technique in isolation, and then hopefully, be creative enough with our training where it can transfer back in under more contextual environment.
Vale, esto es un punto muy importante, porque hay algunos atletas que no entienden la parte técnica, es decir, no saben cómo manejar y comprender la técnica. Entonces, claro, aquí se presentan dos escenarios. Atletas muy élite, que para ellos la técnica es muy manejable, ya la controlan, entonces no tienes que descontextualizar la técnica. Pero, sin embargo, hay otros atletas en los cuales tienes que verles y sí que haces la descontextualización técnica y poco a poco ellos aprenden a manipular esa técnica. Por lo tanto, los tenemos que sacar de su contexto para enseñarles la técnica.
Yeah, the way I communicate it is we have to learn the rules before we can break the rules.
Oh,
if we
wow.
don't know what the rules are, then it's just chaos. So learning the rules of how to accelerate, how to sprint, first and foremost, very important.
Vale, para mí este es un detalle del curso, o sea, creo que es una idea maravillosa. Aprende las reglas, rompe las reglas para entender lo que estás haciendo en el aprendizaje de la habilidad y de la mecánica. So because of that, the kinogram.
Yeah, one of the reasons, for sure, right?
Yeah, it's a great tool.
Yeah, it really is, because it's so difficult as coaches, it's chaos around us. These athletes are moving so fast, and maybe there's so many of them, and it's hard for our eyes for us to train our eyes such that we can see this movement. So to break it down and to build these frame by frame kinograms really helps us develop our eyes, as well as a common language between the coaches and the athletes, so the athlete can understand the importance of some of these positions.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things for a kinogram is they create consciousness into the athlete about the technique.
Yes.
Le he preguntado que, claro, que en este enseñanza y descontextualización de la técnica, el kinogram de Altis es una herramienta muy potente. Yo, al menos, en mi opinión, y él me ha dicho que sí. Dice, porque claro, tened en cuenta que el atleta el entrenador vive en un caos completo. Cuando tiene que moverse el atleta demasiado rápido, el ojo no es capaz de ver todo lo que tiene que ver. Por lo tanto, la creación del kinogram lo que nos da es un frame by frame de cómo el atleta se está moviendo para poder transmitir y acercar al atleta al entrenamiento de la técnica. Entonces, yo le he dicho que lo que hace es crear conciencia al deportista sobre el atleta.
We are currently developing a kinogram method for team sport athletes also. So we've got a lot of videos, and we're building kinograms for soccer players, for American football players, for rugby players, and so on. So it'll be interesting. We are now comparing the kinematics between team sport athletes and sprinters, so we can gain a greater appreciation of how team sport athletes sprint.
Vale, y que está diciendo también que ahora actualmente están creando kinograms de fútbol americano, de rugby players, pues bueno, para entender esa gestión de la cinemática. One question about that. Which are the similarities and the difference between track and field athlete into acceleration with the kinogram, okay? And for example, a team sport, 1 or 2 key points to look at.
Yeah, it's like I said, the rules are the rules. We can't run fast.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't run fast without abiding by these rules. So you need to have a great amount of swing leg flexion. You need to have a great amount of stance leg extension. So there must be a gap between the extended leg and the flexed leg. And we need to move between those as fast as possible. The foot of the swing leg must be dorsiflexed and stiff, so that it hits the ground and it's attenuating all of the forces. And we must be pushing in the direction that is appropriate to the amount of force that we are applying. So we need to strike the ground underneath the center of mass. That's the same whether it's an elite sprinter, a football player, soccer player, every athlete, the same.
Ok, le he preguntado que entonces que nos diga, por ejemplo, 3 claves para entender las diferencias y las similitudes entre el kinogram de un atleta de aceleración y un kinogram de un deportista de equipo, ¿no? De situacional. Entonces él ha dicho 3 cosas claves. La pierna de flexión que balancea y la pierna que extiende tienen que tener gran cantidad de movilidad, gran cantidad de extensión. El tobillo tiene que estar en dorsiflexión para aplicar fuerte y duro, para generar esa fuerza elástica. Y por lo último, tiene que estar el apoyo debajo del centro de masas. Eso es para cualquiera, porque las reglas son las reglas.
Now, the soccer player won't have as much range of motion, and they won't be repositioning their limbs quite as fast as a sprinter. But the shapes are still very similar. The big rocks, those rules are still very important. They just won't be quite as adept at those.
Vale, dice que, por ejemplo, los jugadores de fútbol no tienen tanta movilidad como un sprinter. ¿Vale? Entonces, por lo tanto, no pueden reposicionar sus piernas de la misma manera, por lo tanto, tienen que generar otras capacidades, ¿vale? Son más duros, pero siguen siendo las mismas reglas. Okay. For example, in soccer, we have the ball, and sometimes they run with the ball, they accelerate not with the ball, but they are perturbated, or the ball is a constraint for them. So the technique is different or same? Rules are rules.
Rules are rules. The technique is going to be defined by the constraints around the environment, the task, and all these things that are involved in it. But the rules are still the rules. If they're trying to effectively accelerate, they're doing the same things, but it's just in slight contextual variations of those things. You know, it's not necessarily as important how you're moving with a ball at your feet, but when you don't have the ball at your feet and you're sprinting past the defender to get into space, that is potentially a very important part of the game.
Yeah.
And we know that, a lot of the pivotal events in soccer, for example, involve speed. We have that research. It's shown that. So it's, speed is very important, not necessarily when you have the ball at your feet, but other parts of the game for sure.
Vale, le he preguntado que, claro, por ejemplo, en un jugador de fútbol está el balón que actúa como un constraint, como un constreñimiento de la técnica. Y dice, sí, claro que sí, el balón actúa. No tenemos que pensar solo con esa actuación, ¿vale? En el fútbol la velocidad es muy importante, ¿vale? No es tan importante en el desarrollo de la velocidad, o no solo es lo importante el desarrollo del balón cuando tienes el balón en los pies, sino también cuando no lo tienes. Por ejemplo, cuando tienes que generar ese desmarque, cuando tienes que entrar a través del hueco de la defensa o crear una oportunidad, ¿vale? Además, es que en el fútbol la velocidad del jugador fuera del contexto del implemento también está muy demostrado científicamente que es muy importante.
Also, very obviously, this is going to be also defined by your tactics.
Yeah.
And the types of players that you have. So Spain, you've got Iniesta, Xavi, David Silva. They're not very fast players, so you're not going to play to their strengths. But if you have a younger team or a team that has a lot of bigger, taller athletes who are faster, speed becomes more and more important. For some players, it's not as important because that's not their strength. And that goes back to what I said before, is we start with the athlete's unique abilities and build the system around those abilities.
Vale, luego dice que también, esto también hay que tener en cuenta que esto está influenciado, por ejemplo, con las tácticas y las habilidades del jugador. Ya han mencionado a David Villa, a Iniesta o a Xavi, ¿vale? Que eran jugadores que no eran muy rápidos, pero tenían otras características y otras condiciones. Y que ahí lo que tendríamos que ver es a tener a un equipo joven, el desarrollo de un joven atleta donde su aplicación física será menor. Entonces ahí es donde debemos trabajar. De nuevo, volviendo al inicio de la conversación, giramos alrededor de lo que hace ¿cómo se llama? Al atleta único en sus fortalezas. Ok. Mr. McMillan, last question. Low heel recovery or high heel recovery? It's the same question. Yeah, and because of that, you see the Orlando's technique. He went into a low heel, goes up and back, smash. Yeah. So now, what are your thoughts about that?
I don't think it's that important.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more important. How are you projecting your body in space? How are you repositioning your limbs such that you can get your foot back down on the ground in the right direction, in the right time? For some people, it might be low recovery. For others, it might be a cycle, totally cyclical. I don't think it is the KPI that everybody makes it out to be. It's not, and especially for non-sprinters. For non-sprinters, don't even think about low heel recovery. Just accelerate, just focus on the main things.
Ok, le he preguntado que, bueno, como última pregunta, ¿qué opina de low heel recovery, la recuperación con el talón bajo o la recuperación con el talón alto, que son específicos de la aceleración? Él ha hecho un gesto como diciendo, no, es la misma pregunta siempre. Vale, y él ha dicho, es que yo creo que eso no es lo importante es cómo manejas tu cuerpo, cómo generas la proyección de fuerzas, que para algunos atletas será una recuperación baja y para otros podrá ser una recuperación como más alta, pero que realmente no pensamos, y sobre todo porque la gente que no es sprinter, que no es aceleradora de por sí, no va a trabajar con una recuperación baja, ¿no? O sea, pensemos simplemente en la aceleración y el empuje.
Now that said, it's important to get your foot from behind your body to in front of your body as fast as you can. So if you have an athlete that is cycling backside and the foot leaves the ground and goes up to their gluteus on the backside, then you may have to cue, okay, you've got to drive your foot forward faster and lower. And that's, so it was a reaction to those backside accelerators. But if that's not a problem, don't worry about it.
Ok, él comenta, por ejemplo, que algunos mecánicas de aceleración, pues lo que hacen es que cuando están haciendo la recuperación por detrás, ese talón va al culo en vez de ir hacia adelante. Y en algunos casos, puede ser un foco por así decirlo, de mejora, pero que si no genera un punto de empeoramiento, pues no lo toques. That is one of the ideas that J.B. Morin is talking about, the backside mechanics as a main KPI of the hamstring injury.
Yeah, yes, for sure. For sure. It's if you have somebody who's backside, then you may have to cue more on the front side. So the way in which I coach the acceleration, or most things, we either cue what's going on the ground, so we push, so you push down or push back. And if you have an athlete that is pushing back but is spending too much time backside, then you may have to cue instead driving the thigh forward. Think front side. So with most, this is almost across the board, most team sport athletes, you have to cue the swing leg limb. So a cue, rather than push back, should be drive the thigh forward. Thighs forward, thighs forward, thighs forward. And that way the foot will hit the ground and come forward faster, rather than pushing back, which often with team sport athletes that don't have the coordination, they push back, the pelvis anteriorly rotates, and we go backside.
Vale, le he preguntado que bueno, que eso es una cosa que está hablando J.B. Morin, que el exceso de backside mechanics es uno de los grandes claves para la lesión de isquios, y él está diciendo eso, que muchos de los atletas de deportes de equipo lo que generan es muchísima fuerza hacia atrás, y por eso esa recuperación. Entonces, claro, tú no tienes que seguir generando la indicación, ese coaching cue de empuja, 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 sino lanza tus muslos hacia adelante para crear esa, por así decirlo, esa coordinación, porque ellos no son capaces de generarla por sí mismos. Okay, Stuart, it has been a great pleasure for me. Hope we will see you in Phoenix soon.
Yes, sir. I hope so. Please stay safe, everybody out there.
Yeah, we are trying to. We're at hard times, tough times, but at least we have Altis education for spend our time. And
thank you. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
And when in Spain, when your courses translated to Spanish?
Well, yeah, soon. Hopefully, as soon as we can start traveling again, I come over there. I love Spain. Spain's a wonderful country.
Okay, hopefully we will have you soon here. Hopefully.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Stuart.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.